bad day for the postman. That's my old dog, Toby, who died a few years ago. Those of you who would have met him, you wouldn't forget him. The postman certainly didn't. Toby went right out the front, dragged him into the back, ate him. That may or may not be true. Okay. A little bit of a preamble. Do I need to use the microphone or is this okay?
Yeah.
How's that? Much better. Thanks for the introduction, Angus. I'm Matt. I'm passionate. I'm not politically correct. I don't like or do trite. I try to speak the truth and most of it I succeed. I've been very lucky in my life that I've had many wonderful big dogs as pets. My most favourite was Toby, beautiful big boxer. He was a man mountain of a dog. He was gorgeous. 45 kilograms of solid muscle. Beautifully ugly in that wonderful boxer, hey, I've had my face punched in kind of way. He was as dumb as a barrel of tennis balls, but he was just superb at being himself, at just being Toby. The very best bit about Toby was that he just loved me to bits. I could see it in his eyes, in his actions, and how he used to half kill me with enthusiasm each and every time I entered the house. I often think about Toby and just how wonderful he was at being himself. No pretense, no bullshit, just himself. So, you might be out there thinking, okay, that's good, Matt, but how does this relate to a talk entitled Why Jesus? Well, you have to wait for that bit, something comes out. First off, though, I'm going to take you on a little journey of a few special dates and occurrences in my life. October 1973, I grew up in a small town, Newmarket in England. I was 5 years old and we had a big playroom, a big cold playroom because we couldn't afford to heat it, in the back of the house. When I was 5, some friends of my mum, who were missionaries, born in England, were working in Papua New Guinea at that time. They were visiting back into the UK and just looking up a few friends, etc. They came to see my mum and dad and the family, and I can remember, as vividly as I'm looking at you now, I can remember standing in the playroom with this lady, Maudlin, and she showed me, had a big map of the world up, and she showed me where New Guinea was, where they were doing their missionary work, and she showed me where Australia was, and where WA was, and where Esperance was, where they were living at the time. An idea lodged in my mind in that moment that Australia had a big part in my future, and so it proved. So forward 16 years, August 1989, I'm 20 years old, very good looking, much longer hair than I've got now, and I'm flying to Australia for the very first time. I was incredibly naive as well, I think, at that time. I flew to Perth, and the first person I stayed with when I was in Perth was the lady, Maureen, that showed me the map of Australia back in 1973. So a nice bit of synergy there. There was something about Maureen and her house that troubled me greatly. It's funny looking at Toby, that's very concerned. She had this plaque on her piano, and it was wooden and it was cheap, and in lots of ways it was really quite nasty. About that big, so high, and it just had 3 words on it, and it said, Jesus is Lord. And I used to have to walk back and forth past it so many times each day, thinking, what's that all about? What does that mean, Jesus is Lord? So of course I had to ask her about it. She told me about her faith, her beliefs. She introduced me to 1 or 2 young hip Christian people. I read 1 or 2 books. I even started praying a little bit, and I just started thinking about this character Jesus that everybody that I met in Perth anyway seemed so in love with. I arrived in Melbourne in late 1989. I went to churches and I tried to find Jesus there. Maybe he was there, but it appeared to me that he wasn't. And I'd go into a different church each Sunday in the city, in the suburbs, and I just wanted somebody to be nice to me. Which I didn't think was too much to ask, but it didn't happen. And I felt lonely, and I thought, what did those people in Perth know, and what did they have that I'm missing? It was a difficult time, and invariably after walking out of churches disappointed of a Sunday, going by with some green cans of beer, and drowned my sorrows. March 1990, I walked into this building, through those doors over there. I could barely believe what I encountered as I walked in. Singing, dancing, women with long hair and scarves on, blokes with ZZ Top-like beards. It must have been the fashion of the day, I'm not sure. It was insane, but there was something tangible almost about the place. I could almost reach out and touch God, the love, whatever it was that was present in his people here. It was an extraordinary thing. Some people here will remember Owen Salter. Owen Salter preached that morning, and it was just one of those moments where I felt it was just him and me, and nobody else mattered, and he was preaching to me. It was an incredible time. A few weeks, I started coming to the church here, and a few weeks later, with Brother Angus down here, I made a commitment to follow Jesus. A little while later, I met a beautiful, slightly quirky young lady in the church here called Isabel, and we started going out. 1991, we married in the UK. In 1994, with a newborn daughter, we returned to Australia. The last significant date I have for you is September 98, when I started working for the then Servants in Hawthorn, now Servants Community Housing. Very happy to say I'm still with Servants to this day. I believe it's a place that God has called me to be in, to utilise to the fullest the very best of the gifts that He's given me. In all of these occurrences for all these years, I believe that God has been gently, and sometimes anything but gently, leading and guiding my life. I trust that He'll continue to do so as my life progresses. I think I've been lucky in my life. There's been a lot of real highlights. Committing my life to Jesus is one. My marriage to Isabel is another. The birth and the lives of our 4 terrific kids. I've seen North Melbourne win a couple of premierships and the Red Sox a couple of World Series. I'm passionate about my work and the music and literature that inspires me, and wonderful friendships. These are but a handful of the lovely things that have occurred in my life. Flip side of this, of course, are that there's moments that are sometimes more difficult. Many of you here tonight know some of the struggles with illness that Isabel and I have had and continue to live through at times. Some of these moments have been frightening along the way. We're now into our 22nd year of marriage. Like any couple committed to one another for that length of time, there's inevitable, difficult moments along the way. And of course, there's been times in my life when my job satisfaction has been less than satisfactory. However, hand on heart, I can say I'm grateful for the full range of emotions and experiences I have encountered during the journey. To a greater or lesser extent, I've always been aware of God's presence throughout my journey, walking with Him. For me, there are very rarely those moments of intense clarity, you know, the kind of moment where you believe you can almost audibly hear God say something. That's not normally the way it works for me. For me, it's the knowledge and the awareness of His caring, guiding presence in my life. I think the journey of following Christ is a terribly difficult one. This has certainly been my experience. From the Chronicles of Narnia comes the lovely quote that if we accept that the character Aslan is a representation of Christ. Someone asked, is he safe? And the response was, safe. Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good, I tell you. And in my experience too, I think I can honestly say, Jesus isn't safe. Of course Jesus isn't safe, but Jesus is good. In my experience, the Christian walk It's a very tough and a difficult walk, one dotted with pain, trials and tribulations. But it is the most rewarding journey, the best of journeys. As I was chatting with Angus about doing this talk, he asked me to perhaps explain why I bother to get out of bed in the morning. I often wonder that myself. It's a great question. The reason I get up every morning is to look after the things I believe God has given me to look after and care for to the best of my ability. My family, the work of servants, and the folks that I believe God has put in my path to care for and relate to. I see the goodness of God, the hand of God, all around me, but especially in the emotion of the human condition, especially through art and music. Just like when I looked at my beautiful boxer Toby, I desire to revel in being who I believe I was created to be. Just as Toby looked at me with adoring eyes, that is how I desire to view God. I desire to be settled and content in being the created being God made me to be. I desire to be in a vital relationship with God, one where I know my place in His scheme of things. I know that it is when I follow Him and trust Him, acknowledging that I am created to love and to worship Him, to be in relationship with Him, that these are the times I feel most alive and most fully human. Thank you.